Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Okay, folks, I'm back with you and we're live. I don't know where we're live, but we're having more technical problems apparently. So let me check this and we'll see what's going on. After being cut off last night on the internet, I apologize for that. And I see our audio is screwed up, so let me just fix that. Technical adjustments on the fly. Hang on. Here we go. I'm going to run a little promo. I'll get this fixed and come back on the other side.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight. For freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are two iconic artistic designs to choose from. But there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech. Free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV,
the entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. We're live again. And I hope the audio is better. Let me know in the chat if you're having any issues with the audio here. And I'm going to fix the lighting here in a moment as well. I think we're back in business. For the most part, you can hear me. We have video. And Alex Jones is losing his mind. He's having a meltdown again as he officially declares World War III again. All of that because of what's going on in Syria. Donald Trump weighs in on that. We have also, celebrations in the streets from Ottawa to Berlin, in Damascus and Denmark. People are Syrians all over the world, whether at home or abroad, are celebrating the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, while pro-Russian, pro-communist, pro-left-wing, right-wing, extremist, whatever, pro-Hamas people are having a conniption fit. We'll tell you why. We'll also go live to Calgary, Alberta tonight to follow up on a story we told you about several weeks ago regarding a community effort out there to save a playground. It might seem like a very local story, and it is, but it embodies larger issues that are facing all of us across North America these days, and we'll clue you in on what is happening with that and bring you up to date on this community effort to save this playground where they're trying to destroy it to bring in a housing project. We'll explain what that is all about. So again, let me take a very brief break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to go to the White House to Joe Biden.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, history in the making, history on the run, as the old CBC journalist who I learned from, a few tricks from, after reading his book and meeting him in person, Knowlton Nash, used to say history on the run. The whole situation in Syria continues to unfold tonight. We see that Bashar al-Assad has run away, fled the country, hopped a plane, where we were told for a while that his plane was shot down, that he was dead, possibly, but it turns out he's in Moscow. Well, Joe Biden is in Washington, and we're going there to find out what he has to say about this. Here he comes. He's making his appearance.
Good afternoon.
Here we go.
What happened in the Middle East? After 13 years of civil war in Syria, more than half a century of brutal authoritarian rule by Bashar Assad and his father before him, rebel forces have forced Assad to resign his office and flee the country. We're not sure where he is, but there's word that he's in Moscow. At long last, the Assad regime has fallen. This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks. For years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, When much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back. Only 12 days ago, I spoke from the Rose Garden about the ceasefire deal in Lebanon, a deal that was only possible because Hezbollah has been badly degraded. Meanwhile, Hamas has been badly degraded as well. Iran's own military capabilities have been weakened. Iran tried 2 times to attack Israel, and the United States and built a coalition of countries to directly defend Israel and help defeat those attacks. All this made possible for Iran and Hezbollah to continue to prop up, impossible, I should say, for them to prop up the Assad regime. Additionally, Russia's support for Assad also failed. And that's because Ukraine, backed by our American allies, has put up a wall of resistance against the invading Russian forces, inflicting massive damage on the Russian forces. And that has left Russia unable to protect its main ally in the Middle East. Excuse my cold. The upshot for all this is, for the first time ever, neither Russia, nor Iran, nor Hezbollah could defend this abhorrent regime in Syria. And this is a direct result of the blows that Ukraine, Israel, have delivered upon their own self-defense with unflagging support of the United States. You know, over the past 4 years, my administration pursued a clear and principled policy towards Syria. First, we made clear from the start sanction on Assad would remain in place unless he engaged seriously in a political process to end the civil war, as outlined by the UN Security Council resolution passed in 2015. But Assad refused, so we carried out a comprehensive sanction program against him and all those responsible for atrocities against the Syrian people. Second, we maintained our military presence in Syria, our counter-ISIS, to counter the support of local partners as well on the ground, their partners, never ceding an inch of territory, taking out leaders of ISIS, ensuring that ISIS can never establish a safe haven there again. Third, we've supported Israel's freedom of action against Iranian networks in Syria and against actors aligned with Iran who transported lethal aid to Lebanon. And when necessary, ordered the use of military force against Iranian networks to protect U.S. forces. Our approach has shifted the balance of power in the Middle East. Through this combination of support for our partners, sanctions, diplomacy, and targeted military force when necessary, we now see new opportunities opening up for the people of Syria and for the entire region. Looking ahead, the United States will do the following. First, we'll support Syria's neighbors, including Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel, should any threat arise from Syria during this period of transition. I will speak with leaders of the region in the coming days. I had long discussions with all of our people earlier this morning. And I'll send senior officials from my administration to the region as well. Second, we will help ensure stability in eastern Syria, protecting any personnel, our personnel, against any threats, and will remain our mission against ISIS will be maintained, including the security of detention facilities where ISIS fighters are being held as prisoners. We're clear-eyed about the fact that ISIS will try to take advantage of any vacuum to reestablish its capabilities and to create a safe haven. We will not let that happen. In fact, just today, U.S. forces conducted dozens of precision strikes, airstrikes, within Syria, targeting ISIS camps and ISIS operatives. Third, we will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support them, including through humanitarian relief, to help restore Syria after more than a decade of war and generations of brutality by the Assad family. And finally, we will remain vigilant. Make no mistake, some of the rebel groups that took down Assad have their own grim record of terrorism and human rights abuses. We've taken note of statements by the leaders of these rebel groups in recent days, and they're saying the right things now. But as they take on greater responsibility, we will assess not just their words, but their actions. And we are mindful that there are Americans in Syria, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family. As I've said, this is a moment of considerable risk and uncertainty, but I also believe this is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future, free of opposition. It's also an opportunity through far from certain, for a more secure and prosperous Middle East, where our friends are safe, where enemies are contained. And it would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled and only to see a new one rise up in its place. So it's now incumbent upon all the opposition groups to seek a role in governing Syria, to demonstrate their commitment to the rights of all Syrians, the rule of law, and the protection of religious and ethnic minorities. These past few days have been historic. And it's in the days ahead that will determine the future of this country. And we intend to approach them with strength, wisdom, and resolve. So thank you very much. God bless America, and God protect our troops. Thank you.
What should happen to Assad now, Mr. President?
Mr. President, are you concerned about all that war and release? What does the U.S. know about where Austin Tice might be and if he's safe?
We believe he's alive. We think we can get him back, but we have no direct evidence of that yet. And Assad should be held accountable.
Have you directed an operation to go get him, Mr. President?
Is Assad in Moscow?
Get who?
Austin Tice.
We won't want to get him out.
Yes, sir.
We have to identify where he is. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I don't know why he just doesn't stay at the podium, answer a couple of questions, and then walk away. I don't like it when he does that. He's off microphone and he looks like he dawdles. Anyway. Wow, it is a monumental time, and what can I say, man? Except that Alex Jones is, like I said, he's losing his mind. Here, I'll show you. Okay, he has now officially declared World War III again. Oh, man. Here we go. Here's the headline on InfoWars. Tomorrow's something today. It's official. World War III has begun. Well, yeah, it's been on for a while, actually. The globalists have decided to launch a massive destabilization campaign before Trump takes office in 42 days. Syria, Romania, Georgia have all been plunged into war and chaos as part of larger plan that Alex Jones is exposing live on air right now. Okay, well, thanks for that. How many times has he declared World War III official? And when does it become official? Anyway, good for clicks. And there's lots of action on the ground in Syria. Now, what's the latest on Assad? It does appear that he is in Moscow. And here's Sky News. I'll just throw that out there for you to highlight how much of the world's media is reporting the disappearance of Assad as he fled Syria and where he's at now.
Just want to bring you some breaking news here on Sky News. In the last few moments, we have heard from the Russian state media TASS reporting that President Bashar al-Assad and his family members have arrived in Moscow, and Russia is providing them with asylum. That's according to a source in the Kremlin. It had been the case that Russia had told us that Assad had left Syria, that he had left in an aircraft from Syria, but we didn't know what his destination was, and indeed we didn't know where his family was. There had been speculation that maybe his wife and children had left Syria a few days ago. Russia just saying that all the family were out of the country. Well, now, in the last few moments, as I say, Russian state media is reporting that Bashar al-Assad and indeed his family have arrived in Moscow, in the Russian capital, and Russia is providing them with asylum.
Now, there were reports that he was killed when his plane, which was on its way to Moscow, was shot down. There does seem to be some credibility to the reports that a plane was shot down or crashed, one or the other. But obviously, Bashar al-Assad is alive, still kicking in Moscow, where it appears he will spend the foreseeable future, if not the rest of his life, essentially in exile from his own country in Moscow, where he is being given asylum. Now, we're going to come back to this story in a short while, but what we need to do right now is bring in our special guests for this evening, direct from Calgary, live, thanks to John Rimby, who has been out there helping to connect us to this ongoing story about this playground in Bowness, Calgary, where this low income or geared to income housing project has been approved now, an affordable housing complex in Bowness, and the people in the neighborhood have been torn apart by this. This is a situation where a park is being destroyed in order to make room for this property development. And all of this happening in the face of pretty strong opposition from people like our guests tonight. If I can just get them up here on the screen. Here we go. There we are. Let's bring in our special guests this evening. Hello, ladies, and hello there, John.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us again. I really, really appreciate, giving us a platform to, update you on what has been happening. I'm Leslie Herrera, if you don't remember from last time, and
I'm Jackie Stebanuck. And of course,
and my friend, our bestie, Rimby John. He is just amazing. Thank you so much for coming out again.
Thank you guys for coming back. Love you guys.
We love you guys.
Calgarians.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to do a live shot at the park, but because it's so dark here, that we decided to take it inside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's fine. It's a little warmer for you as well. I have a couple of photos that I queued up here just to compensate for the fact that you can't actually get out into the park in the darkness. So let's just take this back a step for people and explain how this all began for you guys. The municipality of Calgary, like so many other communities, seeking to build more housing because there's a shortage of housing Canada-wide. Housing costs have escalated, they've skyrocketed, so they're trying to address the problem, but the way they're doing it is a point of controversy because they're going to dismantle a park in your community to make room for a high rise or a low rise development. Explain.
Yeah,
please.
so initially the city had put up some properties that were green spaces and playgrounds as surplus land. So they had done this back in 2023, I think, Jackie, or 2022 is when it initially started without, even letting the residents know. So that's how it started. So
we just had our hearing. So we went to our hearing and they actually they didn't even listen to what we had to say. We got over 1,200 signatures that wanted to keep the playground. Because we all know that, when you get a developer and a nonprofit developer, but if the developer could not even afford the land, they had to go to somebody else to purchase the land. And then the city did close doors in 2022. So that's already been 2 years. And then they want to bring it out to our hearing and then promote it that way. So therefore, I've been fighting since 2023 when it was actually up for sale. Um, and when I brought it to their attention, it's not for sale, it's not for sale, it's not for sale. You know what I mean?
They
It's
just basically started to give everybody the runaround. No, it's not
Yeah.
for sale, when in reality it was. So when we spoke to you, I believe it was maybe in August when we first met Randy
Yeah.
John, and
Yeah.
the city had given the residents 3 opportunities to engage. We saw the boards go up back in 2021, or sorry, in August of 2024, so just a couple of months ago, giving everybody engagement, because it's one of the things that the application, the person doing the application has to, it's like a box. So they engaged, they told people, when in reality
There was hardly
hardly
anybody.
anyone. So going into the public hearing December 3rd, just last Tuesday, we were able to, what they basically were trying to persuade the counselors to vote in our favor. And at that public hearing, Jackie and I spoke, and we were speaking just about how the children play there, and the city could pick another, empty concrete slab to build a 5-story building, since there is nothing 5 stories in our neighborhood right now. The narrative that was written regarding the neighbors who were opposed of losing a playground was that we were also against affordable housing, which was the narrative that they took and ran with it. So at the public hearing, we were shamed, we were called racist, and a whole
Racist.
bunch of
Okay, my
Racist.
10-year-old niece has 2 different cultures in her. Was called a racist because she wanted to save her playground that she plays at when she comes to
So
town.
this
What
is
does
the
what does
narrative that
racism have?
was
What does racism have to do with trying to save a playground? I don't
basically, because
understand.
it's if we're for our neighborhood playground, we are against homelessness, and that was kind of how we were
Oh,
painted. So, and honestly, that's not true, because none of our presentations we spoke about land use. So basically, it was like, this park has been here for 30 years, and they said, well,
They demolish it because it's older community, but then one of our councils came up and stated that his community, the park's been in there for 35 plus years, and nothing was done. So I did my research, and nobody has ever taken a playground from Canada, actually. So I went to Calgary, none. Alberta, none. And then I started from BC to the East Coast to see if anybody else took a playground for a nonprofit developer. Nothing has done that. But because we've been deceived by our so-called mayor and the councils that are there, that's supposed to be listening to the taxpayers as well, they didn't really care what we had to say. And therefore I'm very frustrated because I've been fighting for 2 years. And so now I'm thinking of taking legal action against them because of my health. And just it's amazing how they corrupt it, and making us look like a bad people, that we're fighting for our community. And now it's just not this playground that we're fighting for. We're playing for all our playgrounds, because all our playgrounds are in jeopardy now.
So in Bowness, basically what's happened is they've rezoned our green spaces into residential, whereas the city, we have big soccer fields behind schools. We have a 8-acre lot of land that is up for development. And then so that was kind of our fear when we first started this, is that they can take this playground, and now they're going to try to take all of them. Bowness, I'm not really sure. I mean, why did they pick Bowness, Jackie?
Well, because Bowness, the one council that was there, said that we had rich land. We're rich, like our land is rich out here. Well, be back in our days, it was farmer land, right? And then they started to come into a small town. I lived here all my life,
yeah.
coming and going. I have family. I have 5 generation in my family
Well,
that has lived here.
yeah. But
So
the reason they chose this area for the housing development is because there's already residential housing in your neighborhood. It's a suburb, right? And you have a kind of a mix, I would say, of private homes and some affordable housing, which is common across Canada. That's the way the urban planning has been done, I would say, at least since the 1960s, 1970s. But now, because of the housing shortage, they're trying to build more housing, but they also want densification is the catchphrase that they're using, which means putting more people into a smaller, more condensed area, increasing population density. This allows the municipalities to run things like transit services a little more efficiently, because the bus stops, there are just more people in a concentrated area to get on the buses. It puts people into more condensed areas, which means they're trying to work toward a society where we don't have as many cars, or maybe no cars, so that people don't have to drive as far. It's that kind of thinking. And some people would say 15-minute cities, if you want to take it to an extreme, or that kind of concept, which can have, some technical advantages if you want to talk about identifying streetlights that are out using digital technology so that you can dispatch someone there to fix it quickly. Others are worried just about, too many people living in too close a space, that it might not be healthy, things like that. And not to mention the digital tracking, but in particular, in this case, you're concerned about quality of life, not just efficiency of life. You want open spaces, green spaces, a playground for kids to be able to play, swings, slides. And for that, they've said you're racists.
Yeah.
Which I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's laughable.
No, they have.
So there's 1,048 units that are going up around this playground, and they're going to tell me that not one of those families are going to have children in it. But the developer had, if you look on, like you can go on the designs of this building. Now he's putting a playground on top of his on top of the roof. Now how safe is that for that? And then he states it's for his clients only, and you got to make $50,000 to be qualified. Well,
That's not low income labor.
That's not
no.
affordable
So
housing.
therefore, I only make $36,000 a year because I'm on an injury, and so therefore, I'm not going to be able to be qualified as that, because I am qualified as even poorer than the most average person. So therefore, I'm questioning, like, where do these guys cut the line off on nonprofit? Because when it comes down to it, is it nonprofit when it's clients only? And because he is going to charge $1,600 to $1,800 a month for this building, and 10 years he can sell it off, each unit, 50 units, and that means he makes the profit in his pocket, and our mayor as well, and the councilors. And it's really even more disturbing that when we were at our hearing, they were fist pumping each other. That is like a complete slap in the face to anybody. That's just degrading to me. I think that this was wrong, and I fortunately, the person that did it, he should have been fired in the first place, because a couple weeks prior he came on air and he was laying in his bed while he was on a council meeting call, and the whole public heard it, like saw him. And I think that, you know what, if you couldn't get out of your bed to stand for 20 minutes of your time, I understand that you're sick, but then showing off to the public that you can do whatever you want because we have no say over it.
Don't run for re-election, buddy.
No.
So
Well,
I
see,
do
at
see
the public,
that there is a counselor, Giancarlo Cara, who voted in support of the project, but
Oh
he's
yeah,
also
he was
that's
saying,
doing
the
that.
one.
He was doing this.
He's who we're
Yeah.
talking about. He was the one
but
laying in bed.
he's saying in these reports that I've researched, it says that it's possible there could at some point be a new and maybe even a better playground built for the area.
No,
Or
so
what's your view on that?
That's
So
bullshit.
at the public hearing that was brought up, so it was the society, the developer who is developing this. So they initially, in their public hearing, everyone got 5 minutes to speak. They said, we are going to do a playground. We're going to get donations and we are going to build another one. And we said, okay, I mean, he's saying that, right? It's public record. He's saying it in front of everybody. And then at the end, towards the end, when our Ward 1 counselor, Sonia Sharp, when she had said, okay, like, let's see the plans for the new playground, then it was said that there was not going to be a playground and there was going to be one that was already that was already built that was going to be upgraded. So then, of course,
We don't need a new playground, Rick. We already have one.
Yeah,
There you
so they
go.
had said,
Yeah.
yeah, so they had said there was going to be one, and then they had the next day, because our public hearing, because there was quite a few people speaking, so it got pushed back to the second day. So we
I
all
think
went
we're
back to
losing the
second
audio
day.
somehow. It's kind of fading away. Make sure you
Oh,
stay in fairly close to the phone.
okay, is it better? Can you hear us?
I may
Big louder. I could be louder.
Yeah, we can be louder if you like.
I'm so sorry.
You're in the right place for loud
Okay.
people.
But the point is, though, they say one thing but did the other thing. And I've been fighting when it came up online of 2023 for sale. Now, give and take, this is $761. Whoever wanted to buy it, this property should have been at least in the $3 to $4 million property. So they did it to a nonprofit. But then when they came back and told the nonprofits they could pay $561,000, Jeff, and I'm going to say it, Jeff Dyer from Trellis, he stated that in our public hearing that they had, that he can get it for 520. Now, the taxpayer, yeah,
Not
$520,000 he could get it for. And now you think that
So
the
the developer
taxpayers,
was able to purchase the property for $520,000.
Yeah. So this is a property that had 4 houses on it before.
but the city of Calgary still owned it up until the hearing when they said they sold it a long time ago. But nobody knew this. Like even our BCA is very shady. I don't trust them. I don't trust our government
That's the better.
right now.
What is BCA?
BCA is Bonus Community Association. They're supposed to actually have our back. They're actually supposed to be protecting our communities, and they're not. And when you got BCA, that's a Bonus Community Association going behind your back, well, how faithful is that? You know, I lived here in Bonus. I supported every business that has come in, and then we get the crappy end of because we need housing. I understand we need housing, but in a point, this developer, Trellis, had 6 different options to take besides taking a playground. And the reason why he took it is because we have 2 bus stops on one side. But you know what? That's a poor excuse when all the other places that he had busing and had stores around it. So therefore, it was called greed. He piggybacks off the Boys and Girls Club, and that's a shameful thing because the Boys and Girls Club made their own name. And because when I called his company out prior to it, they said, well, you know what I mean? We did work with the Boys and Girls Club, but he was let go in 2023. He only worked for 3 years and 10 months with them. And he was let go because of shady crap that he did.
Well,
so therefore,
we're getting into a lot of details that
sorry,
honestly, a lot of the
allegedly.
people are just not going to be able to
Allegedly,
follow.
Rick.
But
Allegedly.
But you know
yes,
what?
and
It's true.
yeah,
So the most upsetting thing for us is that at the public hearing, we thought that we were actually going to have a voice. And because everyone can speak in opposition or in favor, we thought we were going to be able to convince the counselors. We came in with a lot of good information, a lot of good background. We're talking about land use, right? So keep the playground, nothing about, like homeless or anything like that, because this wasn't the user, it was a land use. So basically, towards the end, like when we, the vote came in and the counselors voted in favor of the development, of course we're really upset. So I just sat there and just like took a second to see what was going to happen. Everybody had left, and the counselors came and they were shaking hands and fist bumping with Jeff Dyer, the CEO of Trellis. And then he walked over to the mayor and they were shaking hands. So,
Jody
Yeah.
Don't
Gondek,
run for re-election, Jude.
Yeah,
Okay,
so seeing that with my own eyes, like having all these handshakes being exchanged, and in me, I felt a little bit better because this had been a done deal before the public hearing. And then I'll also tell you just something a little bit concerning.
You guys are the experimental project. Tell our Maverick News Worldwide family about project number 2 with an old school and 8 acres.
Yeah, so now, there's another
I sent you the
development.
pictures, Rick.
Yeah, what is it, like 5, 6 blocks away from
Yeah.
this playground?
Highland Park.
Now there's 8 acres of land that's up for development, and that's another playground that now there's a board that came up within, I think it was the last few days, for comment submissions to be placed before December 27th. I mean, what day is it today? Like, it doesn't give the
The 8th.
resident the
December
8th,
the
so
8th,
it's gonna give
2024.
us about 20 or 20 days
Yeah.
to do submissions for that, and that's 8 acres of land. There used to be a school, they tore that down. So I think now that the city has realized, like, oh yeah, we can sell a playground. Now we're gonna sell
All of it.
all of, yeah, and this is bonus too. Like, this is an area that the children aren't gonna have a whole lot of green spaces left, and also too, it's being very developed. So just from the playground where we are, there's about 35 new units being built just around there, and that's just not being taken into consideration.
So,
for
so the bottom line is this has been approved. The vote was 9-5, which shows that it wasn't exactly, it wasn't unanimously supported by the community. There was some opposition, and you did sway some councillors, at least 5 of them, to vote against this, but it wasn't enough. So the question I have to kind of wrap things up here tonight is, what next? What are you going to do? Do you have any plans
Legal
to continue
action.
this?
Appeal it and
Yeah.
do legal action
So in
against them.
terms of the zoning, that's done. We can't do anything about that. So that's been changed to an MU1 now. So we can now appeal the development permits, which will be like the design of the building. That will be a little bit of an uphill battle too, because the zoning is already put through for 6 stories. The developer is only building 5, but at this point he can just change the design and build up higher.
Hey, Rick, if I can say something, Bonus is very special to me. My mom and dad rented a room in Bonus in 1958 before I was part of this world. My mom was a 37-year tuberculosis
You
nurse.
keep this clean, John.
Yeah, at Baker Memorial Sanatorium. And Bonus is a very, very special part of Calgary, but it's become the Beverly Hills of Calgary. And everybody, it's so old fashioned here, Rick, to walk down the street. It's like walking to a beautiful rural town in Alberta. And it's just, that's why people are drawn to Bonus. And these 2 ladies, Rick, Maverick News, 2 minutes after I met these beautiful women, these are true Calgarians. They're true freedom fighters fighting for their community, their families, their children. When this playground is gone, it's gone forever. And this talking about, well, we're going to replace this with that and that with this. It's like farmland. When it's gone forever. Now, Rick, if you met these ladies in person, you're meeting them, you'd love them immediately. They're instant friends because they're fighting for freedom. They're truthful. They have integrity. Unfortunately, it's not so much to say when you get to downtown Calgary and City Hall. And I applaud these women for not only being true Canadians, they are true Alberta ladies. They are true Calgarians. And I can say this because I was born in this city. I'm a rare commodity. I was born and raised in Calgary. I was at my farm. And this is what Canada is all about, the world. This is what Alberta is all about. You have 2 beautiful ladies in front of you worldwide. This is what Alberta is all about, and Calgary.
Well, it's not just Alberta that's going through these kinds of things. We will no doubt be seeing a lot more of this kind of skirmish happening, in these kinds of skirmishes happening in, municipalities across Canada and the U.S. as our society grapples with the housing crisis, a growing population, and this move toward a digital world and a more densely populated world, and certain political agendas.
Rick, can I ask you for a Christmas present? This is on the fly. We haven't done it in a while. I believe these two beautiful Canadians, Albertans and Calgarian ladies, I think they should be knighted, Rick. I'm voting for them
You
to
know
be
what, John?
knighted. And we haven't done that in a long
I
time.
agree
Rick,
with you.
Rick,
The difficulty I have here is that because we've had so many technical problems, I don't have the proper videos and multimedia material available to me right now to do
can
it
we just
properly.
on the fly, can you knight
Well,
these two beautiful
sure.
ladies?
Okay, here's
Personally,
my
because you're
back
the guy that
scratcher,
does it.
and I hereby knight the official
There's a
Maverick
whole
Knights.
video goes with it, girls, because I was knighted too. So
Can I just say something?
yes, say.
When it comes to, we're in a housing crisis, but when you get rent that's over your budget and our landlords are getting greedy because they know they can get 15 to $3,000 out of you to keep your house. Now, if they lower the rent, there would be more people in housing and staying in their homes. We wouldn't have as much homeless out there, and we wouldn't have the houses crisis if people realize that their rent. I understand that, housing is a costly thing, but if you're going to build $1 billion house, $1 million house, or a $500 house, the problem is that you got to keep the rent low so all families or anybody can enjoy it. Because once you start raising it, that's when you're going to get homeless. You're kicking out a family of two or one. It doesn't really matter how you look at it. That's how I look at it. If they lowered the prices of renting, we wouldn't be in the problem that we are in now. But because there's so much greed out there, but they want your little bit of money that you have left in your pocket, that I'm not classified as poor because I can budget, but I'm in the category of poorness. And the reason why is that is because I pay for two incomes off that. That's my husband and mine out of $36,000 a year. And then when somebody comes up and says you can only be qualified to go into housing and low cost housing and you have to make $50,000, those are questions like, why didn't they question on us? In our hearing, our ward one did not ask us any questions, and I think she should have, because then people would have known, understand more why we're fighting for a playground. It has nothing to do with walking 4 blocks away. I could have walked 10 blocks away for a park, but the point is that nobody asked us any questions. They just kept on saying, okay, that's it.
I think the
I'm
point
frustrated.
I think a point that Jackie's trying to make known too, it's okay, don't apologize, is that what happened at our public hearing is that they had said that we were all very privileged to own our properties around this playground. And the people that this development is for might not be so privileged as us, which again painted us in this like narrative that made us look very I mean, they don't know Jackie's situation, they don't know my situation or any of the other neighbors. In fact, at the public hearing, the other neighbor of the playground himself said that he was homeless and he slept on the streets and he was just totally discredited. And they just actually he had worked his entire life, he's got 2 kids, and he came out of that to be able to afford a property that he has now, and basically he was painted.
More to come.
Yeah, so
More to come, Maverick News. This story, Rick, is going to continue.
Indeed.
Thank
And
you,
we do
sir.
have to wrap this up, ladies.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Rick. It's always a privilege to be on the show. You are doing God's work, and so are these ladies.
Well,
Your
and so are
show,
you.
and it is,
thank
you know,
That
it's
show last
amazing.
night was great.
It is amazing how they how certain political activist groups, I would say, the way they weaponize words, the way they use this woke ideology, like the language of privilege, to oppose people like yourselves who are really just there because you're concerned about a park space, which
Well,
normally
and
I
the
think
kids in
most
our
people would.
neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the
it's about
children
quality of
here.
life. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's such a
And
friendly place. Like you can walk down the street and everybody says hi to you. You're not even a complete stranger hardly anymore. You know, I've lived here. I live in a third generation house. My family does now.
yeah.
And you know what I mean? If it wasn't for my father-in-law, then I don't know, like we would be renting just as much and paying just as much. But the point is that we have a friendly community and you each have your own little spots of your neighborhood and you get to know your neighbors and you get to enjoy it. I never knew Leslie until I started doing the petition. And
You
like I
didn't know me
said,
either till I fell off the bus and went, here's a freedom protest there, Ricky.
yeah, and you know what? I'm glad I got to meet her because you know what? I've got to know more about my neighbors and to respect them. But when you start taking playgrounds, like I said, nobody's ever taken or sold a playground ever.
Well, the one down, and now they're trying to do the other
Yeah,
one.
now
The
they're
other one
doing
is
all of us.
5 times bigger than
We gotta
this
wrap it
one.
up then.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know,
Thank-
Maverick News, on behalf of Bonas, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, a pre-Merry Christmas to everybody. May God bless the world, and we all pray for peace, Rick.
Thank
around
Thank
the
you.
world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you so
before
much
you
again.
go, I do now have what I need to officially knight you.
We, the Maverick family, do hereby dub thee an official Maverick Knight, freedom fighter extraordinaire. May your courage and devotion to freedom and truth become a shining example to the people of our world and the Maverick universe. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Ground that they wanted.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very
John.
much.
God bless you, Sir Rick. Thanks for the truth, and let's pray for peace, my friend.
Thank you, Maverick News, for having
Thank
Jackie
you.
and I, and really
Wow.
putting our story
Little
out
love
there.
from
And
Bonas, Calgary.
All right. Well,
Merry Christmas.
story's not
Oh,
over.
no,
We will
no.
have you guys back, and Merry
Oh
Christmas
yeah,
to
I'll
you
be
guys as
updated.
well.
thank
All
you.
right.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you
so
again.
much.
Thank you very much.
To this guy
Merry
too.
Christmas. God love you. Peace.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this collectible t-shirt from the Maverick News Memorable Moments collection. Even a would-be assassin's bullet could not stop him. Instead, he emerged with his fist in the air ready to fight. For freedom. Get your Trump Fighting for Freedom t-shirt with any donation of $30 or more to Maverick News. There are 2 iconic artistic designs to choose from. But there is only one way to get these. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Support free speech. Free media. Support Maverick News. Call 1-866-248-1490 or order online at supergeeks.tv.
Okay, we'll pivot back to the situation in Syria, where we are seeing so much going on with this. We're seeing massive, I wouldn't say they're protests, they're more like, well, they're demonstrations, but celebrations in cities all across the world. But this is what it looks like in Syria tonight. Let me show you, ladies and gents, some pretty happy people.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
But as we're seeing that, I think it's important to realize that the situation is volatile, unstable at this point. And that is because in Syria. This is not a one side versus the other kind of situation. It is a mess in Syria with many different factions, political groups, terrorist organizations, foreign governments with influence in the country. The United States still has about 900 to 1,000 troops on the ground there. I wouldn't say there is really heavy evidence of, serious involvement of the US in what has been going on in Syria over the past week or so. Obviously, the US has been there. We're seeing assertions that the United States has been bombing possibly some ISIS targets within the country as part of everything going on. But I wouldn't say the US, at least I'm not seeing direct evidence of the United States being the driving force on the ground within Syria. Obviously, the war effort in Ukraine, as President Biden just talked about, that seems to have had some direct impact, or maybe indirect impact, I guess is probably more accurate, on what's going on in Syria. And when I say it's unstable, it is. We are seeing tonight new footage of Syrians looting the home of the once iron-fisted ruler of Syria, Bashar al-Assad.
هاي غرفة بنته انهبت هبي كانت غرفة بنته الله لا يردها هاي عم يقولوا خدي خالتي خدي صحتين حقك مستحقك شي هون شوفي ما صار شي.
Kind of reminds me when the FBI went into Mar-a-Lago and went through the underwear drawer of Melania Trump. In a way.
تنزيلة مالك الماركات لوي فيتون شوف.
Oh, Louis Vuitton. Well, isn't that special? Just shows you how those socialists are the Russian-backed socialists are so concerned about equal distribution of income, right? Yeah, right. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, what else is going on with this? So, we're seeing people flee the country. The supporters of Assad are have been busy trying to catch whatever flights they can in order to get the heck out of Dodge, or in this case, Damascus, before the rebels get their hands on them. Let me show you. Here we go. This is the scene at the airport.
قلنا لهم المطار صديق ما حد مصدقنا. يا بيي العالم سكرت وهربت. يا بيي.
I think it's revealing when events like this take place. You begin to, you see how certain media outlets respond in a particular way, right? The pro-Russian, pro-Hamas, pro-Iran streamers out there are blaming tonight Israel for all of this, and of course the CIA. And while I think that there is absolutely evidence that, and we know that the United States has a toehold into Syria in a small way with that ground force of about 900 to 1,000 troops. It's been there for quite a long time, but nothing like what Russia has had inside Syria. And Donald Trump tweeting yesterday that the United States should stay out of it. In fact, essentially is demanding that the United States stay out of the conflict. But yeah, Russia, they've been supporting the Assad regime there for many, many years. The Assad family had control of the country, sort of. Decades ago was Bashir al-Assad's father, who was the ruler before him. And he's been propped up for at least the past 12, 13 years by Vladimir Putin. But it has always been a very unstable regime, an unstable country because of the ongoing civil war, which has been raging during Bashir al-Assad's reign. Here's Putin in Syria back in 2017. He says 2 bases have been established here in Syria and will operate permanently. In Tartus and here in, I have trouble because of my Canadian accent pronouncing some of these words, Kemaiman. And if the terrorists raise their heads again, we will strike them in a way that they have not yet seen. That was Putin in 2017. And yes, they have been propping up Bashir al-Assad, but obviously stretched thin. The focus, not so much on Syria, and the rebels have taken advantage of that, as Putin is focused on what's going on in Ukraine and his little project there, and you have the war in Gaza underway as well, and the conflict with Lebanon, between Lebanon and Israel. Somebody took their eye off the prize, or their eyes off the prize, in Syria, and now the Assad government, the Assad regime, has fallen. A monumental day, a milestone. It's a time that I'm sure a lot of people will remember forever. Forever. Let me take a quick break. When we come back, we'll add some perspective to this and some context with a reflection on what's going on with Ukraine. And we'll explain how all of this is kind of, we'll explain how Donald Trump is having a major impact on what's going on, both in Syria and in Ukraine and abroad.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media outlets simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so Assad in Moscow, and it's telling when you look at different media outlets and you see how they cover particular stories. Their worldview, their bias really begins to show through when you have a major news event happen. Let's take a look at Sputnik. This, of course, one of Russia's state media outlets. Oh, you think CBC is slanted? Check out Sputnik. What are they saying? Why are Israel and the U.S. salivating over Syria's breakup? Keep in mind, this is all Russian perspective, right? Russian worldview. And as I said, from the Russian perspective, of course, it's all the CIA and Israel's fault. And in fact, it's their choreography that has brought this about. It says here in this headline, Syria's Assad arrives in Moscow with his family, Kremlin source. And that's how we know he is still alive. Live updates. Syria needs a new constitution and government, says Biden. So they're paying attention, as always, to what's going on in Washington. And Maria Zakharova slams Reuters for Assad death claims. Maria Zakharova is, well, here, let's bring the story up. This made waves all around the world, man, in an extremely serious way. The computer's freezing up. Hang on. It's popping up here. Or it was. I don't know if it's going to open for us. We'll try again. Close this one. Well, the other headlines here are that U.S. and Israel continue airstrikes in Syria. They're saying that it's the United States and Israel. Of course, Erdogan, the next 2 to 3 months are crucial for world and Turkey. And of course, we're seeing actually some pretty heavy involvement of Turkey and what's going on in Syria. No doubt about that. Yeah, these are not going to open up. These links on the Sputnik website not happening. But while all that is going on, we're also getting reports tonight that the Russian bases there have apparently left some soldiers behind. There are some reports indicating that these soldiers have actually been abandoned. I don't know if that's an accurate representation, if that's an accurate word to be using, abandoned, but that's what's being said. So they've been left there, and there are reports that these bases are being surrounded by rebels, although there are counter reports coming out of Russia and media outlets there that say those bases are not currently at risk, but the situation on the ground is, of course, unstable and maybe even unsafe. That's also why most governments, including the Canadian government tonight, issuing statements saying people should not travel to Syria for any reason. If you are in Syria, you are being advised to leave the country as quickly as possible, provided it is safe to do so. That's the message coming straight out of most capital cities tonight. So, you want to see inside Bashar al-Assad's garage? What kind of wheels does the man? Well, did the man have? I think he's lost his car collection. Oops, that's okay. I'm sure he'll be able to buy some new stuff. It'll be a project for him in his new digs in Moscow. So this is a little trip through the Bashar al-Assad garage. Cadillac. Can't tell what those are. Audi, I think, yeah. Oh, yeah, Mercedes. That's one of the fastest cars in the world, that Mercedes. I think that was a Rolls. That's a Beamer. Another Audi SUV. Well, too bad, so sad. Nice rides. Well, you had them. Oh, well. Easy come, easy go. We will see. We will see. I don't know. I don't think we've quite heard the end of this. Very interesting story, though, isn't it? And all of this, they're tying back to Ukraine. Now, yesterday we saw, as I said, Donald Trump saying the United States should stay out of it, don't get involved. He also says that Putin really had no business being in there either. But of course, the truth of the matter is both the West and Russia have interests in the Middle East. And that's why Russia set up those bases in Syria to begin with. And here's some video related to the reports of those Russian troops being abandoned and surrounded now, possibly by rebels. Here we go. This is what it looks like. Yeah, I don't know if the Russian cavalry is going to be coming over that hill. They might have a little bit of trouble getting the heck out of there. Now, they also opened up all the prisons and basically let the prisoners all out. I don't know if that's wise, but a lot of those prisoners in jails, we're told, some of them are political prisoners. And I've also heard reports that some of those political prisoners in Syria have been behind bars so long that they are not even aware, or have not been aware, that there has been a shift or change in power from father to son, not realizing that Bashir al-Assad has actually been in power, learning only of that upon their unexpected release from prison. Now, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that the Syrian people have become part of a geopolitical experiment. Here's his clip on that.
We are very much sorry for the Syrian people who became a subject of another geopolitical experiment. We are absolutely convinced of inadmissibility to use terrorists like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to achieve geopolitical purposes, as it is being done now with the organization of this offensive from the Idlib de-escalation area. But you know, what we do in the world, maybe the mentality is different. The Americans, for them, I know them very well, for them what is important, how they are perceived. And they always want to be perceived number one. When they tell something, everybody must say, yes, sir, whatever Uncle Sam decides. In our case, it's not about being concerned with the impression we make on the people. We do things in which we believe. And if we could help, since 2015, could help to keep the Syrian state apart, if we could organize the process with Iranian and Turkey colleagues which is called Astana process, and we met today, as you mentioned. This in itself was a very helpful process. Nothing goes smoothly in world diplomacy, but the events which we are witnessing today, they are clearly geared to undermine everything we have been doing during those years.
Well, but who? Well, obviously, in his view, this is the work of the U.S., probably Israel in his mind as well. Where's the proof of that? I don't know. I do know this. For years and years and years to come, in perpetuity, that will be the narrative from the Russian side. CIA, USA, CIA, USA, CIA, USA, CIA, USA. Just say it over and over again, and that's all you need to know to sound really intelligent and convey the idea that you're a very learned person when it comes to geopolitics and the anti-American, anti-Western perspective. Just say CIA, USA over and over again, and yeah, you'll be famous. Now, also we saw yesterday, and this was very interesting. Trump at the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral met Emmanuel Macron. He also met Vladimir Zelensky there. They had a trilateral meeting, is what it was described as. We also saw that Zelensky came out and said that the meeting had been productive, I think was the word that he used, or might have been constructive. I think he said productive. Either way, you're getting the idea. And as that happens, now Trump has come out and is saying he is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. Major development, really, because in a way, Trump continues to put the world on notice. Now, last night, the thumbnail and title of our video for the day was Trump moves toward isolation. And indeed, he has been working, I would say, to isolate the United States, certainly from the war there, if possible, or at least convey the image or the idea that he is trying to end the war and disengage as much as possible from these wars so that he can put America first. And in that respect, many people view what his position is as somewhat isolationist. I'm not so sure that it's ultimately going to end up that way, but that's the way it was. Now, the reason I also say, even on this day, just one day after posting that kind of title and thumbnail on our featured video, is because really this is very good strategy heading into his inauguration and the expected peace talks that are supposed to happen if Trump manages to get this done right away. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about this, about Trump meeting with Macron and Zelensky yesterday, calling for then a ceasefire immediately so that they can then get to negotiations with Vladimir Putin. But this is significant because, well, a lot of people seem to think that Trump is just going to come into office, cut off all the aid for Ukraine, and then end the war. It is not going to happen as in that way. It won't. It can't. The meeting yesterday, take note that Zelensky also came out and indicated that he has been given some sort of assurance that the support for now is going to continue for Ukraine. So while Trump has been talking about ending the war in 24 hours, it seems he's at least awake to the reality as unfortunate as maybe the reality is, he's awake to the reality that he can't just yank or cut all aid to Ukraine, military, lethal, non-lethal, non-military aid, financial aid, and let the country just fall. He can't just hand it over to Vladimir Putin. He'll look weak to the world. And I think probably yesterday, while he was at the opening of the cathedral in France, he no doubt had to have taken note of the standing ovation Zelensky was given when he walked into the cathedral. Standing ovation, which really showed Trump and the world how much support there is actually for Ukraine worldwide. You have to acknowledge it. You have to take note of it. It was a very real, visceral thing. And Trump, it had to have make an impression on him. And as much as he was handshake wrestling with Emmanuel Macron yesterday, you can see that the two of them, there's somewhat on the same page. Don't judge Trump, they say, by his words alone. Judge him by what he does, his actions. Yeah. I think there's real truth to it, and that's playing out right now. He knows he has to go into those negotiations with Putin from a position of strength, and ultimately he has to understand that Ukraine is an ally of the West, even though Russia wants to claim the rest of Ukraine, obviously, for itself. Putin wants it, or at least he's going to work to completely destroy it and the culture of the Ukrainian people along the way. And when I talk about destroying culture, nobody understands that, I would say, better and in a similar context than the people of Quebec. It's interesting that this really didn't get a little more play yesterday, but I guess it's because François Legault of the Bloc Québécois in Canada, excuse my French accent, it just comes out naturally when this Anglophone even just starts to think and talk about Quebec and the Francophone community in Canada. So yesterday, yes, the Premier, François Legault, was in Paris, and he also met with Trump, Zelensky, and Elon Musk while he was there. In fact, here is a photograph I will show you. This is important in a way, on at least some level, because here's Legault with Trump yesterday, and while he met with Trump and Zelensky and Musk, he pledged Quebec's support to Ukraine from the province of Quebec in Canada. He expressed understanding of the issues facing Ukraine. And for the people of Ukraine, there are many issues. One of the issues is the preservation of their language and culture. When I listen to conservatives like, say, Michael Savage, livecaster, podcaster, used to be on the radio, been around a long time. What's his whole mantra? It is borders, language, culture. These are conservative hallmarks. And indeed, that is really what the battle in Ukraine is partly about. Borders, language, culture. If you listen to Putin, if you listen to Lavrov on the Russian side speak about these issues, even they indirectly acknowledge that that is what it's about. It's about the Russian-speaking population in Ukraine that they have to defend. In fact, the Russian-speaking population within Ukraine is present there because of generations of Russian aggression historically into Ukraine and the Russification of Ukraine by bringing more and more Russian-speaking people in there. And during the Soviet era, in particular, there was an ongoing effort to inject more and more and more Russian culture, Russian language into Ukraine. And if you look at what some of the concerns are on the Ukrainian side right now, it's concerns about their libraries being bombed, their museums, their other places, their cultural institutions, that house their cultural institutions. They've made videos about it expressing concerns because a lot of those kinds of buildings have actually been targeted. When I first saw it, I thought that, and it's true, that's not going to register with people here in the West, because a lot of people just think that Ukraine is just like Russia, that the languages it's just they all speak Russian. No, they don't. Ukraine has its own language. It's a different language. That is one of the issues there, because these language laws as well that drove sort of a wedge in between the population there, the Russian speaking population and the Ukrainian speaking population. Although a lot of the Russian speaking Ukrainians are culturally and through their heritage linked back to Ukrainian culture, but speak Russian as well because of the Russification, as they call it, within Ukraine. I draw your attention to what happened with Legault yesterday from Quebec in Ukraine, because Canada has gone through very much the same kind of struggle, the French and the English, French culture, English culture. We've seen during the patriation of the Constitution in Canada, the concerns from Quebec about being able to preserve its language and making sure that the laws and the Constitution of Canada will work to help the people of Quebec and Canada in general, but the people of Quebec to preserve their culture and their language. Now, some people accuse the French of being bigoted in a way because they are so fiercely protective of their culture and their language. And a lot of, I would say, Anglophones don't understand it. Be quite honest, Anglophones find it annoying, a little irritating, a lot of us, to have to read French and English on our cereal boxes. Bilingualism. We've become accustomed to it. It's part of Canadian culture now, I think, to be bilingual, or at least to just accept that there's French on all of the packaging that we have. There's French on one side, English on the other. It's just the way that it is. But Canada has dealt with the whole issue in a much different way than Ukraine has because of this war now, and because the imposition of Russian language injected into Ukraine has come in kind of a different way, and it has been abrasive and divisive in a way that the people haven't been able to deal with in as peaceful a manner as we have here. But don't kid yourself. I mean, there was real conflict between the French and the English for a long time as the two sides battled for control of what is now Canada. And you had Upper and Lower Canada. Upper Canada actually down below, Lower Canada in the northern section of the original settlements. Why? Because the Anglophones controlled the balance of the power after the conflicts, and Toronto, Southern Ontario, the predominantly English speaking areas, that was Upper Canada, even though it was South, and Lower Canada was the French speaking area up there. So you see, even there, it's an illustration of prejudice, an attempt even by the Anglophones at that time to preserve their culture and make it dominant. And indeed, English is the dominant language in Canada. French, the second official language, two official languages. supposed to be treated equally. Although, you know, if you go to Quebec, French language gets an even more special treatment. If you can understand that and relate to the complexities of that issue, I think you can at least begin to scratch the surface of understanding why language and culture has been in part the heart of the conflict in Ukraine. Why the Ukrainian people are fighting so hard to regain their independence and to preserve their sovereignty. They've been fighting for it for a very long time. Generations, many, many generations, and resilient they have been. Not to say that you want to take anything away from the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. They've been there a long time too. But somehow, you know, here in Canada, we've been trying to find ways to coexist peacefully, and we've been successful in doing that for about 150 plus years. In Ukraine, not so much, at least not right now. But I would argue that that is because of foreign influence and specifically because of Russia. And that's the truth, fueling what amounted to a civil war. And that has also contributed to the conflict in its current form right now. In fact, it really in many ways began with that. Not the absolute beginning, but one of the milestones toward this conflict. We'll continue on the other side of this. Don't go.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, the official opposition in Canada, speaking today, hammering on those issues of high taxes, the carbon tax, corruption, and of course, this coming on the heels of Trump taunting Trudeau with his comments about Canada possibly becoming the 51st state. Let's go to Pierre Poilievre's speech. Pick this up. Here we go. Pierre Poilievre today.
This time, Chrystia Freeland told you that she would have one by the end of the year, after the Prime Minister's office had told you that one was coming early next week. I actually made an offer
to fiscal update
the Prime Minister and Ms. Freeland that I would give up some of Conservative opposition motion time on Monday, tomorrow, to let them introduce their fall update. An unprecedented act of non-partisan generosity. I was shocked to see them turn it down. They claimed that they wanted to introduce such a fall update and that it was just those mean Conservatives that were blocking them from doing it. So I cleared the way. 2 hours. They could have introduced it. But they said no. Bizarre. Normally, governments love to introduce fall updates because they are gigantic opportunities to advertise all the good things the government is doing for the finances of the country and the pocketbooks of the people. Well, that is, if you're not doing any good things, then you probably don't want anybody to know about it. And that is, in fact, the case of this government. The reality is that Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau have lost control of the finances. Justin Trudeau is a weak prime minister. He's lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, lost control of the debt, lost control of inflation, lost control of housing costs, lost control of crime, lost control of drugs. He's lost control of his own cabinet, with his foreign minister launching her leadership campaign on the front page of the New York Times with a big, beautiful photo shoot that she would have gone into a studio to have done, and a screaming headline describing her as a potential successor. He has totally lost control, and now he doesn't want Canadians to see the disastrous state of our books. Remember, he promised, she promised, the deficit would not exceed $40 billion. And now they won't tell us what the deficit is. There are real consequences for these costly failures. After 9 years of Trudeau, everything costs more, with food prices having risen 37% faster in Canada than they did in the United States during the exact same time period. That gap coincides with the coming into force of the carbon tax on the farmers and truckers who bring us our food, a tax he now wants to quadruple to 61 cents a litre. This is a prime minister who's doubled our housing costs. So now 80% of Canadians believe, for the first time in Canadian history, that home ownership is only for the very rich. Last week, OECD said that Vancouver and Toronto are now by far the most expensive housing markets in North America. We have the highest housing costs and the lowest incomes. Look at comparison. Seattle's housing costs are about 30% lower than Vancouver's, even though Seattle workers make far more money than Vancouverites make. Housing costs in Toronto are significantly higher than Chicago, even though Chicago workers make more than Torontonians. The two worst housing costs. How is it possible that we have 10 times as much land per capita as the Americans, that our housing costs more than theirs? That's because of 9 years of Justin Trudeau's out-of-control inflationary money printing and immigration, and his financing of local bureaucracies that block home building. And not only do we have expensive homes, we have more homeless people. 38% more chronic homelessness. 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. 35 homeless encampments in Halifax after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP Liberals. 2 million people line up at food banks. A quarter of our kids are going to school hungry, and a quarter of parents are skipping meals so their kids don't have to. Those same parents toss and turn at night because they are the most indebted households in the G7. By far, it's not even close. And then our own debt, our national debt, has doubled. Trudeau and the NDP Liberals have added more debt than all prior prime ministers combined. And now they won't even tell us how big the debt or the deficit is. Crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder now spill into our once safe streets, with rampant repeat offenders out killing, maiming, raping, and decimating our communities, our once safe and tranquil communities. Hate crimes are up 256%, with church burnings, fire bombings of synagogues, and attacks on other places of worship now out of control. With all this damage, with everything that Justin Trudeau and the NDP Liberals have done to make life more costly and dangerous, it would be unrealistic for me to ask them to improve the situation in their upcoming fall economic update. So I have a more realistic request. Actually, it's more of a plea. Stop. Just stop. Stop adding inflationary spending that balloons the cost of living. Stop your carbon tax hikes. Stop taxing home purchases. Stop adding dangerous and irresponsible debt that threatens our social programs. Everything you're doing, Justin Trudeau, just stop doing it in this fall update until common sense conservatives can start fixing everything you broke. There will be a carbon tax election. And in that election, there will be a very simple choice. Either we go ahead with quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre, driving hundreds of billions of dollars and millions of jobs to America and driving our people to starvation, or common sense conservatives who will axe the tax. That's why it's a carbon tax election. 61 cent a litre carbon tax with the NDP Liberals, zero carbon tax with the Conservatives. The choice again, an NDP Liberal government who will tax your food, punish your work, double your housing cost, and unleash crime in your community, or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Our common sense Conservatives will take the GST off new homes to save you up to 50 grand on a purchase and stimulate an extra 50,000 apartment and housing builds every single year. We will cap spending, cut bureaucracy and waste to fix the budget. We will stop the crime by locking up violent repeat offenders, securing our borders, and banning hard drugs. In essence, we will bring home Canada's promise, the very simple promise that hard work earns you a powerful paycheck and pension that buys affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods in the freest country on earth, Canada. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor.
Okay, that's enough. So that's politics. And you know what? Let's go back. I'm going to let this. I am going to let a little of this Q&A roll because, well, you know what we're going to do? Actually, I'm going to cue this up first because Trump just couldn't resist. He was speaking. He was being interviewed on Meet the Press, and people are laughing. They think this is some sort of a joke. I disagree. I don't think this is entirely a joke. People are laughing about it. You laugh it up, but no. Trump again in this interview making reference to Canada becoming the 51st state and maybe Mexico the 52nd. How many times is the joke going to be told before people understand that there's a serious layer to this? How serious, I don't know, but this is not just a joke. There's more to this than that. This is his clip on Meet the Press today.
We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. We're subsidizing Mexico for almost $300 billion. We shouldn't be subsidizing. Why are we subsidizing these countries? If we're going to subsidize them, let them become a state. We're subsidizing Mexico, and we're subsidizing Canada, and we're subsidizing many countries all over the world. We're subsidizing.
You sure you want us? You're worried about $100 billion in subsidies to Canada now? Now? Imagine, Donald, what you'll have to subsidize if you absorb Canada. The healthcare system, the free dental care. Yeah, you sure you want us? You sure? Not to mention, you're going to have to add, you already have English, you already have Spanish, you're going to have to add French as well. Good luck dealing with those issues. Maybe your rhetoric is about to have unintended consequences. Now, all that being said, let's go back to the Pierre Poilievre Q&A for a moment, if we can, please. Yes. Mr. Producer, can you bring up Pierre Poilievre again? Yes, please. Okay, here we go. I think he will.
Donald Trump again floated the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States. Are you concerned that the president-elect repeatedly brings up this idea of annexing our country?
I would be. I am.
Well, the bottom line is that Justin Trudeau is a weak leader, and he gains no respect from countries all around the world. Canada should have a strong, smart leader with the brains and backbone to put our country first. And that's what I will do. We will have common sense conservatives will put Canada first. We will remove the crippling taxes and debt that have weakened our country under Trudeau. We will unleash the production of our resources to make ourselves more economically independent. We will rebuild our military and secure our borders, and we will go into negotiations with our American friends in a position of strength rather than weakness. Canada will be independent, strong, and proud, and our flag, the maple leaf, will fly proudly again over our country. Thank you.
Can I get that French too, please, sir?
And now he says it in French. Yeah, I wanted to share that with you. I don't think it's a joke. How far is this going to be taken? I don't know, but those are serious words coming from any president of the United States. And it's not, and we've been hearing it. I've been paying attention and hearing it from, as I've said many times on this program, from others, online influencers. It's like that's the way politics works. You float what they call trial balloons. You soften people up by presenting an idea. You gauge the public reaction. You put those messages out through online influencers, through the media, before you say it yourself, to see what kind of reaction you're going to get. That's why we've been hearing it for some time from a number of people like Lieutenant Steve Rogers, Jackson Hinkle, Tim Pool, Tucker Carlson, kind of going up the alternative media food chain, and now all the way to the President of the United States, who in the past week has mentioned it now twice. A joke? I don't think so. Whatever happens, I love my country, and I'm going to continue to fight for freedom in whatever form. I love the United States too. I can't imagine that we're going to be invaded by the U.S. If that happens, I would say there's even a deeper reason for it than just the United States taking us over. I don't think that it would be that simple. Then there would be something even more at play. And I think there has been something more at play for quite some time. But I don't want to scare you too much tonight, folks. I'm also optimistic that maybe Trump is getting back to the same kind of. I think maybe we're seeing a bit of a return to the original Trump, the Trump of 2016. This new Trump that I've been seeing concerns me, but I still see elements of the original Trump. And I'm hopeful that maybe a lot of what we've been hearing is just political posturing for the purposes of getting elected, and now maybe for the purposes of positioning heading into trade negotiations and peace talks. And then hopefully we just get back to making the economy strong again and all these other things strong again, so that the United States can be strong again. And hopefully Canada can be strong again too. And hopefully we can all be free again. And with that, I will leave you with this. Please like, share, subscribe. Give us the thumbs up on our YouTube channel. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble. We need your support there. We absolutely need you to like, share, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Doesn't cost you anything. If you would like to support the program, and we do need help because we kind of came through the end of last month pretty ultra beyond underneath in the red lean. So we could sure use your support, and you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. freedomreporters.com. Any donation of $10 or more, and I will send you the 10-song Free Dog album packed with songs about freedom and positivity. And with that, I will leave you tonight with the title track, once again, Free Dog. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side. Take it away, Cosmo, my best friend.
I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune, lonesome dogs cry about freedom and running and touching the sky. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. Cosmo's got them paws that just itch to roam. He's chasing his dreams, he's far from home. With a heart full of love and a spirit so free, he's living his life wild and carefree. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of the blur. Cosmo's on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes. Now the night's getting cold and the sky's turning gray, but Cosmo's still out there, he's miles away. He's not looking back, he's got his path to tread. With every step, he's leaving his bed. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. So if you're feeling lost, just think of Cosmo's run. Remember his spirit, his freedom, his fun. And maybe one day, when you're feeling alone, you'll find your own freedom and let your spirit go. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmo's free, running wild, wild as the wind can be. He's a free dog, he's a free dog, he's a free dog. Eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird. A heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird. Cosmo's on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.